Hi, my name is J.O. This is the YouTube channel of MaximizeYourMedicare.com. This book, the 2019 edition, available in ebook and paperback format everywhere. You can find it at www.MaximizeYourMedicare.com. You can send your private questions to the email that is scrolling at the top of the screen now. Today's episode has to do with moving when you're under Medicare. Now, you can have a lot of motivations for it. For example, you're tired of cold weather. You could want to move close to your grandchildren. You could have other family matters or personal matters that take you from location to location. This does present a certain set of issues that you need to consider. And as always, today's information is not advice, but it's just literally a list of things to consider. Things to consider as far as location may go. You may want to think about it in advance. And let's just say, for example, it's not today, but you see it happening in a couple of years, still probably worth considering. So we'll start with Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage is a combined program. People have PPOs or HMOs, for example, for the most part. Usually in the majority of cases, combining both health and prescription plans inside. And we're going to take a simple example. We're going to take one simple example. The case of someone who lives in, let's just call it Indianapolis. So now you're in Indianapolis and you're interested in moving to Florida. Okay, and let's just call it Sarasota. All right, so you're on a Medicare Advantage plan in Indianapolis. When you move to Florida, you will need to change Medicare Advantage plans. There is no leeway around this. You cannot be a resident in Sarasota and carry your plan that you had established in Indianapolis. Now that said, you have the unrestricted right to change when you get to Florida. You have a special election period. It allows you to change among Medicare Advantage plans freely, no restrictions. Okay, now, the question is one of selection. Generally speaking, it depends on whether or not you are familiar with Sarasota and familiar with your support system when you get there. Okay, so for most, you get to Sarasota and you're just happy you're in a nicer climate. Okay, fine. Maybe you don't have figured out who your primary care physician is, who your specialist. And we're going to take the complicated situation of someone with an incurable medical condition. Let's call it rheumatoid arthritis. No cure at the moment. Okay? So now you've gone to Sarasota and you don't have your primary care physician. You don't know who your rheumatologist is. Okay? In this instance, if you're in Medicare Advantage, I generally tell persons settle on PPO and not HMO. And I have only one reason, and we represent all the carriers. So that's not the reason because the PPO is paying us better or worse. We don't determine it. We have no say. We don't get a vote. So it doesn't really matter. That part doesn't matter. What does matter, however, is the fact that as you're trying to identify your primary care physician or your specialist, your group, clinics, hospital is usually not the issue. It's usually about the doctors and the clinics that you need to go and see. Okay? Pain management clinic, for example. Very complicated. In this situation, since you don't know exactly who your network, who's going to be in and out of network, you don't want to be constrained. And for that reason, especially when you first move, while you're trying to identify this group of doctors, I generally tell persons, don't mess around. just use the PPO. At least then you'll have time to consider what your best combination is, because you can change from PPO to HMO in the next calendar year, right? You can use the annual election period, starts on October 15th, runs through December 7th. You can change that from PPO to HMO once you're settled in Sarasota. However, when you first get to Sarasota, that stuff may not be organized in your mind. You can change your opinion. Maybe you're going to test out doctors. You're going to find out who you like, who you don't. And they're going to take a different set of plans, right? And I use this example intentionally, which is Florida, very complicated as far as networks go. Very complicated, county to county, so fragmented. Okay, that said, so the rules, it's a point that I make in the book. It's a very important point. The rules in your favor. Don't consider the problem. It's not really a problem. Your flexibility to change plans is not the problem. However, once you get to Florida, choosing the plan can be an issue, right? And so as a result, you're going to want to choose the plan which is most flexible for you, at least until you kind of have your support system figured out. So that's Medicare Advantage. For Part D, standalone prescription plan, clear. You've got to change plans. That said, less complicated. Why? First of all, in most locations throughout the country, you're talking about somewhere around 30 plans per state. And that's a good round number, okay? And a lot of these plans exist in every state. And so let's just call it Plan X, okay, by carrier number 1. Okay, and you know that I'm not going to name names of different plans, and there's a reason for that, because this is not financial advice. But the reality is, the practical reality is, it's very likely that Plan X exists in both locations. Okay, now, you still need to change. You still need to tell the carrier for Plan X, hey, I've moved from Indianapolis to Sarasota. The reason is that even if Plan X exists in both locations, that doesn't mean the premium is exactly the same. It doesn't. Okay? Plan X can have different premiums from Indianapolis to Florida. That is entirely possible. Now, much like in Medicare Advantage, you can change your prescription plan. You can change it from X to Y. Is this possible? Yes, absolutely possible. It's a special enrollment period, right? The same type of path that allowed you to change Medicare Advantage plan, it exists identically for your prescription plan. Your standalone prescription plan, you can change it. You must change it. Okay? So this can actually be an unintended consequence which could work, in your favor. Let's just say, for example, you have had a list of medications and it's now April, almost May. You find out, hey, you know what? My Plan X, it's not efficient for me. I found actually that Plan Z should have been better. When you get to Florida, you can identify whatever that Plan Z will be. And when you get there, you can change plans. So like I say, this is what the point of this book is, really, which is, look, there's a lot of moving parts, language, and out of focus, obviously. Come on now. maybe the vision is better out of focus. Okay, there we go. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that the rights and options you have under Medicare favor the consumer. They do favor the consumer if you know what you are doing. So that's it for Medicare Advantage and for Part D. Now, Medigap, substantially more complicated. Substantially more complicated. Okay. So now you're in Indianapolis. You're now 68 years old. Okay. And you've had Medigap for 3 years. And let's just call it Plan G. Okay. Plan G, Plan F, Plan N, the three most popular. Anyway, you're in Indianapolis, right? And you've chosen a particular carrier. And you chose it because its premium was superior to a very competitive market. So now you've arrived in Florida. Now, and let's just call it carrier Y. Okay. So carrier Y was superior in Indiana. However, when you get to Florida, you find out that carrier Y is non-competitive in Sarasota. Now you have a pickle. Okay. You're in this game of pickle because why? You have rheumatoid arthritis. Right? This is why I use this example. When you get to Sarasota, you don't just get to call up the cheapest Medigap carrier and say, I've moved, now I'm going to enroll in your plan at 68. Can't do that. Why? Because your Medigap open enrollment period has closed. The new carrier has the right to ask you medical questions. Rheumatoid arthritis, sorry, you're on a short list of those situations where you are almost in an automatic decline. Okay, you know that infusion therapy, pain management therapy, very expensive stuff. So basically what ends up happening here is your carrier, what do we call it? X? Carrier X in Indianapolis, they can't cancel you. But what they can do is they can raise your premiums because you've changed location. Okay? So what ends up happening is the carriers do have the right to change your premium based on where you live. So now in Indiana, let's say for example, carrier X is an Indiana only, Indiana intensive carrier. Okay? Jay's Insurance of Indiana. Okay? Well, I may be very competitive in Indianapolis. I may ignore Florida entirely. And now your premium is substantially higher with no real way of changing to the same plan. You're going to have to accept the higher premium. So complicated as you can see. There are two possible paths. Two. The first one will require some planning in advance, which is that I generally ask our clients, hey, are you intending to move? Do you have extended families? In other words, I'm not trying to have a crystal ball, right? I don't have a crystal ball. However, let's say, for example, you're in Indianapolis, you are now 65, you're not yet 68. You have family members, you vacation, you've got a home that you've gone to in the winter, and you know that, hey, sometime in the horizon, I'm going to be moving to Florida. In that instance, you may not have elected carrier X. Right? You may have chosen a different carrier when you were first turning 65, one that you know exists and is competitive both in Indianapolis, as well as in Sarasota. Can this be discovered? The answer is yes. The reason is, we have full access to all the prices in all these locations, and we have clients that, crisscrossing these different locations, so it's not really a problem. Can we find this carrier who is kind of acceptable in Indianapolis as well as Sarasota? The answer is yes. So that's path number one. Simple think ahead. Right? I have our persons go through. Are you planning to move to Washington State? Are you planning to move to Massachusetts, Virginia? Where are you planning on going into an RV and then traveling the country? The number of different situations is actually more common than you might think. Okay? So that's path number one. Path number two is you get to Sarasota and you realize, okay, it's out of reach, meaning that the Jay's Insurance of Indiana, we don't exist in Sarasota. So as a result, our premium is substantially higher, $150 a month higher. Can this happen? The answer is yes, certainly can. And I'm making up a hypothetical number here. I mean, but yes, the premiums in other locations outside the central area can be substantially higher. Let's say you realize, okay, that's unattainable. Now it's a math of money exercise. Can you use it to change to Medicare Advantage? Yes. Remember, for all persons, canceling your Medigap plan is possible to change into Medicare Advantage. One pathway to use that option is moving. So once you've moved from Indianapolis to Sarasota, you can certainly change from Medigap to Medicare Advantage. I'm Jay. This is the YouTube channel of Maximize Your Medicare. Be sure to subscribe to not only this channel, but there's a podcast out there as well. You can sign up on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you digest your podcasts. We'll have more episodes here on the YouTube channel with other exceptional situations during mid-year. Thanks for watching.